insight. It could be falling in love, or travelling to a new place, or when a loved one dies, or the birth of a child. That phrase, the road to Damascus, comes from our first reading from today, from the book of the Acts of the Apostles, accounts of the experiences of the followers of Jesus in the first years of the early church. This Easter season, we get a series of readings from Acts about different people. Today it's Saul, also known as Paul, next week Tabitha, then Peter, then Lydia, and then Paul again and Silas. We get little snapshots of their life and faith as we go through this season. And today's snapshot is about Saul, whom we mostly know as Paul, which is the Greek version of his Jewish name. Paul, who goes on to write the letters to the Corinthians and the Romans and so on, that make up a lot of our New Testament. But here he is Saul, and he's from Tarsus, which is in Turkey, and he's a Jewish man, but a Roman citizen. He's a traveller, he's well educated, and very concerned for the well-being of the Jewish people who were spread right across the Roman world. So concerned that he's alarmed by this new group that has sprung up within Judaism, the people of the Way, as the followers of Jesus were known. In Jerusalem and elsewhere, these followers of Jesus are beginning to be excluded from the synagogues and persecuted. One of the first followers, Stephen, is stoned, and Saul, we are told, approved of their killing him. Saul is a fundamentalist, so certain of his own beliefs that he will even act with violence towards those who might believe something else. Well, we know what that looks like. We know what that has looked like down through the centuries. Fundamentalism turning to violence. So Saul is on the road to Damascus, travelling from Jerusalem. It would be about a 4-hour drive today, except of course that today you wouldn't be able to cross the border from Palestine, Israel into Syria. Fundamentalist violence has made sure of that. But Saul is on the road nearing Damascus, and he sees a bright light, and he hears a voice which says, "Saul, why do you persecute me?" The light is so bright that he cannot see, and his travelling companions help him into the city, where he stays for 3 days and eats and drinks nothing. Yes, we're supposed to leap in our minds to Jesus in the desert maybe, or Jesus in the tomb, 3 days. After 3 days, a follower of Jesus called Ananias, rather reluctantly, because he's heard of Saul's violence, he goes to Saul, prays with him, and baptizes him. And Saul joins the people of the Way and begins new travels with a new purpose, preaching and teaching about this Jesus he has experienced. At some point in his travels, he starts being known as Paul, which, as I said, was the Greek version of his name. And as we noted in our Easter readings, we have to be careful here of the threads of anti-Jewish thought, they're kind of hidden in the text. This account is often called Paul's conversion, the moment he renounced his Jewish faith and became Christian. But in the early years, there was no Christianity as we know it today. The people of the Way were faithful Jews who wanted to explore a new understanding of God and the life and teachings of Jesus. But they didn't have any sense at the beginning that they were starting a new religion. So Paul didn't convert, he continued to believe in the same God. He just stopped his horrendous acts of violence towards other believers. So I think it's more correct to say that Paul was called on the road to Damascus. It was a call, not a conversion. He was called to change his ways and to embrace a new way of being. It was a dramatic call, but he needed something dramatic to stop him in his steps and renounce violence. he would go on to call others to a similar path, when he would teach and write at length about there being no difference between Jew and Greek, slave and free, male and female. Paul would forever call people to be a part of the body of Christ and not destroy each other over difference. So if we really want to use that term, a road to Damascus experience, it might more accurately describe a time in our lives when we've caught ourselves being racist or sexist or making assumptions about another group of people. A time when we've stopped ourselves making a nasty comment to someone on social media, or when we've pulled up a friend or a workmate for a similar comment. In COVID times, we've ramped up our false narratives and conspiracy theories and accusations of each other, and we've seen so many people fall down those rabbit holes. But we can reach out to each other and help each other have our Damascus moments where the scales fall from our eyes and we see clearly again. And of course, we're not going to do that by dismissing each other or yelling on social media. We'll do that by being like Ananias, who was prepared to step over the barrier of fear and reach out to someone who was his enemy. And when we're prepared to examine our own behaviour and our own motives before criticising the motives of others. Being a follower of Jesus like Paul or Peter and the other fishermen in our Gospel reading, or like Tabitha and Lydia coming up soon, being a follower is all about being in relationship and being in connection with each other. Being willing to look inside ourselves and be challenged by the demands of the gospel, and to rely on each other for help on the way. The moment that we drift into a fundamentalist certainty that we are right and others are wrong is the moment that we see the Damascus road boarded up with barriers and checkpoints. It's the moment we see armies on the move in Ukraine, and it's the moment we see friends lost to us in a swirl of conspiracy theories. How can we be like Ananias and then eventually like Paul and remain open and humble? Well, our first step, as always, is gathering as we are today around the table, being fed like disciples on the beach, and then getting ready to be sent out on the road.